Once upon a time, a lone Roman soldier stood on the misty shores of ancient Scotland. Behind him was the full might and wealth of the Roman Empire, and before him lies the unknown, an untamed land filled with fierce tribes and rugged terrain. His eyes scan the horizon, knowing that what lies ahead may be the Empire's toughest challenge yet. But what happened? Let's find out. The Roman Empire, one of the most expansive and powerful civilizations in human history, had by the 1st century AD carved out an empire that stretched from the deserts of North Africa to the forests of northern Europe, and from the Atlantic Ocean in the west to the banks of the Euphrates River in the east. The empire was renowned for its military might, political organization, and ability to assimilate conquered peoples into its way of life, which it considered superior to the barbarian cultures that surrounded it. However, not every region succumbed easily to Roman rule. One of the most challenging areas for the Roman Empire to conquer was the land known to them as Caledonia, modern-day Scotland. The Romans, who had successfully subdued the rest of Britain by 43 AD, encountered significant resistance when they turned their attention northward. The Romans viewed the people of Caledonia as barbaric, uncivilized, and dangerous. It was a civilizing mission, justified by their belief that Roman ways were superior and beneficial to all. As such, the idea of allowing an unruly, untamed land like Caledonia to exist on the northern frontier of their British province was intolerable. Determined to bring Roman order to the chaotic north, the Roman legions, under the leadership of skilled commanders, launched multiple campaigns into Caledonia. These campaigns were not just about expanding the empire's borders. They were part of a broader strategy to secure the northern frontier of the empire and prevent the Caledonian tribes from threatening the stability of Roman-controlled Britain. The Romans believed that by conquering Caledonia, they could pacify the region and transform it into another Roman province, where Roman law, culture, and infrastructure would eventually take root. The first serious attempt to conquer Caledonia came during the reign of Emperor Agricola, who was appointed governor of the Roman province of Britannia in the late 70s AD. Agricola was an experienced military commander and a loyal servant of the Roman Empire, tasked with expanding Rome's dominion over the northernmost regions of the British Isles. Under Agricola's command, the Roman legions began a series of aggressive military campaigns into Caledonia, aimed at crushing the resistance of the local tribes and establishing permanent Roman control over the region. At first, these campaigns met with some success. The Roman army, known for its discipline, organization, and superior technology, was able to defeat several Caledonian tribes in battle. The Romans quickly moved to establish a series of temporary forts and military outposts as they advanced northward, including a major fortress at Inchtittle, situated on the River Tay. This fortress was a key part of Agricola's strategy to secure Roman dominance in the region, as it allowed the Romans to control a strategic area of Caledonia and launch further operations into the heart of the territory. The Roman forts were more than just military outposts. They were symbols of Roman power and civilization. Wherever the Roman legions went, they brought with them not only their weapons, but also the infrastructure of the empire: roads, bridges, and fortified settlements. These forts acted as logistical hubs, allowing the Romans to maintain supply lines and move troops quickly across hostile territory. However, despite these early successes, the Roman campaign in Scotland was far from straightforward. The geography of Caledonia presented a significant challenge to the Roman forces. Unlike the relatively flat and open landscapes of southern Britain, Caledonia was a land of rolling hills, thick forests, and rugged mountains. The weather in Caledonia also proved to be a formidable adversary. The region's climate was cold, wet, and unpredictable. The Roman soldiers, accustomed to the Mediterranean sun and the more temperate climates of southern Britain, found themselves battling not just the Caledonians, but also the elements. Adding to these difficulties was the fierce resistance of the local tribes. The Caledonians were not a single, unified people, but rather a collection of tribes who, despite their internal rivalries, shared a common desire to resist Roman domination. The Caledonians were skilled in guerrilla warfare, a style of combat that the Romans were unaccustomed to. Unlike the organized face-to-face battles that the Romans excelled in, guerrilla warfare involved hit-and-run tactics, ambushes, and swift attacks on Roman patrols and supply lines. The Caledonians, who knew the land intimately, used the forest and hills to their advantage. These guerrilla tactics took a toll on the Roman forces, wearing them down over time. Despite these challenges, Agricola was not deterred. He recognized that the key to conquering Caledonia lay not just in military victories, but in breaking the will of Caledonian tribes. He knew that as long as the tribes continued to resist, Roman control over the region would remain fragile. Agricola's strategy was to push further into Caledonia and force tribes into a major confrontation, one that would allow the Romans to demonstrate their superiority on the battlefield. He understood that a prolonged campaign of skirmishes and guerrilla warfare would not be sustainable for the Romans, who needed to secure the region quickly before their supply lines became overstretched. Agricola knew that the Caledonian tribes, though formidable in guerrilla tactics, lacked the organizational cohesion of the Roman army and would struggle to win a pitched battle against the well-trained Roman legions. And so, Agricola prepared for what would become the defining moment of the Roman invasion of Scotland, the Battle of Mons Graupius. This battle would pit the full might of the Roman Empire against the fierce resistance of the Caledonian tribes and determine the future of the Roman campaign in Caledonia. According to the Roman historian Tacitus, Agricola's forces numbered around 30,000 men, consisting of Roman legionaries and auxiliary troops. They faced an army of Caledonians that was reportedly twice their size, though modern historians believe this number was likely exaggerated. The Caledonians, led by a tribal chieftain named Calgacus, were determined to drive the Romans out once and for all. The Battle of Mons Graupius was a fierce and bloody conflict. Tacitus describes the Caledonians fighting with incredible bravery, using chariots and hand-to-hand combat to try to break the Roman lines. But the Romans, disciplined and battle-hardened, held their ground. Despite being outnumbered, their superior organization and tactics allowed them to gain the upper hand. In the end, the Romans were victorious. According to Tacitus, they killed around 10,000 Caledonian warriors while suffering relatively few losses themselves. It seemed like the battle would mark the beginning of Roman domination in Scotland. But the victory at Mons Graupius would not lead to long-term control of the region. Despite their victory, the Romans found it increasingly difficult to maintain their hold on Scotland. The Caledonian tribes were not crushed by the defeat at Mons Graupius. Instead, they continued to resist through guerrilla warfare and sporadic raids on Roman forts. The rugged landscape and harsh climate made it challenging for the Romans to hold on to their conquests, and the cost of maintaining garrisons in such an unforgiving region was enormous. Moreover, the political situation within the Roman Empire itself was becoming unstable. With the empire's resources stretched thin, there was growing pressure to pull back from the costly and difficult conquest of Scotland. Agricola was recalled to Rome, and his successors were less enthusiastic about continuing the campaign. Within a few years, the Romans began to withdraw from Scotland, abandoning many of the forts they had built. The northern frontier of the empire was eventually solidified along Hadrian's Wall, which marked the boundary between Roman Britain and the unconquered lands to the north. Hadrian's Wall, built during the reign of Emperor Hadrian in the late 120s AD, was not just a physical barrier, but a symbolic one, representing the limits of Roman power. The failure to conquer Scotland marked a significant turning point in the Roman occupation of Britain. While the Romans would make occasional raids into Scotland over the next few centuries, they never again attempted a full-scale invasion. The legacy of Rome's failed invasion of Scotland is still visible today. Hadrian's Wall, though in ruins, remains one of the most iconic symbols of Roman Britain. It stands as a reminder that even the mightiest empire could not conquer every land it sought to control. Scotland itself was shaped by the Roman invasion, though perhaps not in the way the Romans had intended. The failure to fully Romanize the region allowed Scotland to retain its unique identity, distinct from the rest of Britain. The Caledonian tribes, who had resisted the Romans so fiercely, would later evolve into the Picts and other groups that would play a key role in Scotland's history. While the Romans may have seen their invasion as a failed attempt at civilization, the people of Scotland had a different perspective. To them, their resistance was a defense of their way of life, their land, and their independence. In the end, it was this resistance that helped preserve Scotland's unique identity and culture. What do you think? Was the Roman invasion of Scotland doomed from the start? Or could they have succeeded with different strategies? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to check out our other historical videos.